Right now, having worked in mainstream schools for over 30 years, it's been interesting stepping out of mainstream to see exactly why it hasn't worked. First of all, the mainstream schools are too large. There is absolutely no way that you can give the wraparound care to children, and for any one teacher in any one day, if you have, let's say, 5 periods a day, you're dealing with sometimes about 150 different children every hour. It is impossible to give wraparound care. Now, children come into school with a multitude of issues from home, from the streets, from peer pressure, etc. And they're not being addressed in school because teachers simply don't have the time. Schools are regimented by bells, pips, subject time limitations, and I thought that, one of the reasons for Enterprise Diamond was to eliminate all of that, because life is not about putting things in little pockets during the day. So that is why they're failing. So the teachers don't have them. Everything is too results driven. To get on the league tables, that's all that matters. And you have a number of children whose needs, their mental health, they are being sidelined because of just to get the right results. So that's one reason why they fail. Two, the curriculum in this country is Eurocentric. It doesn't address the fact that Britain as a multicultural country needs to be embracing everyone's cultures. The Black History Month is a token gesture. Every year, schools roll out the same American heroes that after a while becomes meaningless. In this country, we have got our own unsung heroes. We have got people in the community who are doing great things who are never talked about. So they become unknown, unseen, unrecognized. And as far as the majority of Black children up and down this country, they haven't a clue that these people exist. We look at some of the Black history cards, they're all American, and that's fine. But where's our version? So we have a lot of people who will do fantastic things, they will live and die in this country, and nobody will know anything at all about it. So that's one of the reasons why children are failing. Number two, for those children who have had parents who have gone through this education system here in the UK, they find a lot of their parents have had negative experiences of school themselves. So they are unable to pump the enthusiasm into their children because they're very fearful. And the only time parents are called into schools is if something goes wrong. You pick up the phone to ring a parent and it's like, what has he done now? What's she done now? They expect bad news all the time. So, because school doesn't have a positive image. So by embracing, the various different cultures and celebrating it, until that is done, schools are going to fail. Now we have, for example, the GCSEs in this country is the be-all and end-all of the road to employment. But there isn't the scope on the national curriculum to celebrate or to promote literature written by Black writers. So for those children who are being taken through, let's say, for English language and English literature, which is one of my subject areas, they will go through that course because it's very prescriptive, not knowing that there are fantastic writers out there whose work they can study. And they would go through the entire school and never ever know it. So these famous and fantastic writers out there are just being sidelined in favor of the national curriculum. Now when I started, I was already teaching when the national curriculum came, its inception. And very little has changed, if any, in over 30 years. So it's the same thing that's rolled out year after year, almost at the same time every year, the same thing is rolled out. So not just for the children, the teachers lose the enthusiasm when you've been doing the same thing for 15 years running. You lose that enthusiasm. It's difficult to sometimes pump it into children who might be doing it for the first time, but for the teachers, it's the same old resources, tired and, over and over again. So for our children, the Black children in this country, they just switch off because they don't see anything. They look at the books and they don't see images of themselves or images that look like themselves in all the books. We look at the heroes and they're all white. I had a bit of a shock with my own children who, because since I started my own school, I went out and I bought a lot of resources and a lot of books with, starting from books for young infants with a lot of black faces. Now, when my children were growing up, they read all the traditional fairy tales, etc. And I only found out recently from my daughters that when they were growing up, they thought that in order to look beautiful, they had to be white. And I was completely and utterly shocked. And, so for me, I'm hoping that when I have my grandchildren, I have it start that, that they see themselves as different. And, my children are not an isolated case. This is happening all around. There's no images of themselves, the positive images of themselves that are not caricatures that they can relate to. And if the curriculum doesn't provide for it, they may have a bit of Chinese New Year, and they'd have this but where are the cultures coming in from Africa? From the motherland, there's nothing there. The things that are celebrated in the Caribbean, there's nothing there. There's no space on the curriculum for it. So the children they spend 75% of their lives in school between the ages of 5 and 16, and there's nothing there to represent them. They will go out onto the streets where they will find their own, and goodness knows what they're getting up to. And for those children who come from homes that are broken for one reason or another, where the single parent who's there might be out 2-3 jobs to try and make ends meet, those children are even further lost. And that is why we have the problems that we're having now. So until the curriculum is addressed through our own schools, so that those children have a sense of identity from day one, and instead of French and Spanish, or as well as French and Spanish and German, we could learn Swahili. You can have, you have more teachers coming in who look like them, that they can have something to aspire to, and that is very, very important. So that not just, I want to be a teacher when I grow up, but I would like to be someone who, you have a doctor, you have various people, mentors within the community who are coming in, not just to give a motivational talk, but to talk about what they actually do and the journey, how they got there. That is what children find inspiring.